Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning to all my dear students of Happy Home School. I welcome you all to another recorded lecture of History Grade 7. The topic for today's lecture is Arrival of the Europeans in South Asia. The objectives for today's lesson are to explore the reason of the arrival of the Europeans in the subcontinent, as well as to comment on the weaknesses of the Mughals that led to their downfall in the subcontinent. For centuries, Europeans in Asia were guests, trading partners, and subordinates. The belief that Europeans arrived in Asia as conquerors has been formed by a few incidents which we are going to discuss today. The spice trade. The port of Calicut was in the center of a pepper growing area where Hindu, Arab, and Chinese merchants traded in large numbers. Goa, which is the smallest Indian state, was the capital of Portuguese activities in Asia and attracted millions of tourists until now. Portuguese colonized Goa and occupied it until 1961. In more than 5 centuries long occupation, Portuguese influenced every aspect of its life. The riches of India. In the Middle Ages, the Europeans had certain misconceived notions about mysterious India. However, when a few luxury goods from India and East Asia had gone to Europe since Roman time, which were very rare and expensive, as the Europeans became richer and more adventurous in the 15th century, they people wanted spices which they could not grow in their own continent due to cold weather. They also wanted silk and cotton cloth, perfumes, rice, and sugar, and India was full of it. It was called the Golden Sparrow due to the immense treasure it had. The vastness of the subcontinent and the lack of unity among the different rulers, as India at that point in time was governed by multiple rulers, made the conquest of the mightiest empire always easier. The empire was divided into different independent provinces run by different rulers, Hindus and Muslims both. Therefore, it had been always very difficult to exercise control over ministers and army. The ignorance of the rulers also attracted the invaders from Europe. The Indians did never realize that the world was changing, or even if they did not change with it. All around the coast of the empire came European merchants in growing numbers with their strong ships and powerful cannon. From a continent where major changes were taking place. Last but not the least, discovery of the new sea routes. The discovery of a new sea route towards the east made the trade much cheaper and easier for the European traders. The Portuguese explorers who went east creeping down the coast of Africa suddenly found themselves in which the Indian Ocean. They now knew that they could reach India from Europe entirely by sea. Apart from economy, the other reason for the European exploration was the spread of Islam and to attain glory. They really believed in the need to spread their religion, that is Christianity. They also had the desire for increased world power through their colonial empires. Vasco da Gama, who was a Portuguese explorer and the first European to reach India by sea. His initial voyage to India between 1497 till 1499 was the first to link Europe and Asia by an ocean route. This is widely considered a milestone in world history, as it marked the beginning of a sea based phase of global multiculturalism. Da Gama's discovery of the sea route to India opened the way for an age of global imperialism and enabled the Portuguese to establish a long lasting colonial empire in Asia. He anchored his ship in 1498 at the port of Calicut. He traded peacefully in 1498 and, on his return home, sold the spices he had bought for a huge profit. A second larger Portuguese fleet arrived in Calicut in 1500. They bought a warehouse for storing goods and left behind some merchants to continue trading and fill the warehouse ready for the arrival of another fleet from home. Unopposed access to the Indian spice routes boosted the economy of Portuguese Empire, which was previously based along northern and coastal West Africa. Portugal maintained a commercial monopoly of these commodities for several decades. It was not until a century later that other European powers, first the Dutch Republic and England, later France and Denmark, were able to challenge Portugal's monopoly and naval supremacy in the Cape route. The East India Company, the EIC, set up in 1600, was interested mainly in Spice Islands, but it sent a small fleet to Surat in 1608 and another in 1612. However, the English did not get much of a welcome in Surat, nor at the Mughal court. Neither the goods they brought to trade nor their presents to the emperor were found attractive enough. King James I sent an English noble, Sir Thomas Roe, to Jahangir's court. Roe was tall, handsome, well educated, and good company. Emperor Jahangir liked him and gave him permission for the East India Company to build a factory at Surat. Roe stayed in India for 4 years. This was the beginning of the British Empire in the subcontinent. This company ran the British trading empire in South Asia through the 17th and 18th centuries. It was founded by 219 members in 1600 with the support of Queen Elizabeth I. By 1700, its membership had grown to 3,000. The second half of the century was more successful. King Charles II also supported the company. In 1661, he married a Portuguese princess who brought with her Bombay, present Mumbai, as a wedding gift. It was a collection of islands which made a better base than Surat and replaced it as Britain's main factory on the western coast. The period of the Great Mughals, which began in 1526 with Babur's accession to the throne, ended with the death of Aurangzeb in 1707. Aurangzeb's death marked the end of an era in the Indian history. When Aurangzeb died, the empire of the Mughals was the largest in India, rising over regional powers, deposing the Mughals, and eliminating European competition. The East India Company deftly brought India under its power. Students, the map clearly shows that by 1857 the English was able to conquer more than half of India. The pink coloration in the map clearly indicate the control of British over the subcontinent. Amidst all the chaos, the EIC developed a strong hold in the subcontinent by eliminating other European competition and entering into conflicts with local rulers. The British were now well placed in the subcontinent. Their factories were growing in size and wealth. The British Navy was the most powerful in the world, and the East India Company was rich and getting richer. 18th century India was constantly in a state of metamorphosis. History highbrows would name it a juncture of change and continuity. On one side, there was decentralization of power with the rise of regional kingdoms and downfall of the mighty Mughal Empire. On the other hand, a new foundation of the British Empire in India was being laid with the colonization of India by the British East India Company. That's all for today. Thank you for being with me, kids. Hope you liked the presentation. Kindly go into Google Classroom and attempt the provided quiz uploaded over there. Allah Hafiz.